In episode 61, titled Exam Day Tactics, a simple mental model for DA0-002 success, the focus is building a calm, repeatable plan for test day that protects accuracy under pressure. The CompTIA Data Plus exam measures practical judgment, and exam day is where good preparation can still be lost to pacing mistakes, rushed reading, and avoidable stress. A strong mental model is less about clever tricks and more about consistent behaviors that keep attention on the question being asked. With a steady approach, the exam becomes a sequence of small decisions rather than a single high-stakes moment. Arriving early is not about proving dedication, but about protecting cognitive bandwidth before the first question even appears. Early arrival creates a buffer for parking surprises, check-in delays, and the small frictions that raise heart rate and drain focus. When the environment is unfamiliar, a few extra minutes allow the brain to stop scanning for threats and start scanning for patterns, which is exactly the mode needed for data questions. A settled pace at the beginning often pays dividends later, because the exam feels less like a chase and more like a managed workflow. A two-pass approach is a practical way to secure easy points without getting trapped on a single difficult item too early. The first pass targets questions that can be answered confidently with a clean read, because those points build momentum and stabilize timing. The second pass is where harder items receive deeper attention, and that attention is earned by the time saved earlier, not borrowed from the last minutes of the exam. This approach also reduces anxiety because progress is visible and the number of unanswered items shrinks in a controlled way. Reading the question stem twice is a small habit that prevents large errors, especially when options are intentionally similar. The first read establishes the topic, while the second read confirms constraints like time frame, scope, and what the question is actually asking for, such as best next step versus root cause versus interpretation. After the second stem read, scanning the answer options becomes a targeted search rather than a guess-and-check exercise. That sequence reduces the chance of selecting an option that is correct in general but incorrect for the specific scenario described. A strong technique is turning the question into a single sentence in plain language before committing to an option. This sentence should name the action or conclusion required, such as choosing the best visualization, selecting the safest data source, or identifying the most likely data quality issue. When that sentence is clear, it becomes easier to notice when an answer choice solves a different problem than the one asked. This habit also helps with multi-step scenarios because it prevents the mind from drifting into related topics that are not being tested in that moment. Distractor elimination becomes more reliable when verbs are matched to outcomes, because many options differ mainly in what they would produce. Verbs like validate, cleanse, aggregate, visualize, and monitor imply distinct intents, and the correct choice usually aligns with the stated goal of the question stem. When an option's verb implies a different outcome than the stem requires, it can often be removed, even if it sounds technically impressive. This is especially true on questions that test judgment, where distractors are built to feel smart while quietly missing the actual task. Scope traps tend to appear when the question leaves out details and invites the test taker to assume them. A common pattern is an answer option that depends on permissions, tooling, or data availability that was never stated, or that expands the scope beyond what the prompt supports. Another pattern is a hidden assumption about data type, such as treating a categorical label as continuous, or treating a timestamp as reliable when no evidence is given. Careful readers stay anchored to the constraints that exist on the page, because the exam rewards disciplined reasoning more than imaginative problem-solving. Time budgeting works best with checkpoints that prevent late panic, because panic is usually a timing problem disguised as a confidence problem. Checkpoints create moments to look up, confirm progress, and decide whether the two-pass strategy is still on track. When timing is managed early, the final portion of the exam is less likely to turn into a sprint that causes sloppy reading and preventable mistakes. The goal is not to race, but to keep a stable rhythm that leaves space for review without creating a last-minute scramble. Strategic guessing is part of a mature test day plan because some items will resist quick resolution even for well-prepared candidates. Guessing becomes safer after eliminating clearly wrong options, since removing two distractors often changes the odds meaningfully. A disciplined guess is paired with forward motion because staying stuck costs more points than a single imperfect choice if it steals time from multiple later questions. The key is treating a guess as a planned decision under constraint, not as a failure, and then re-engaging the exam with a steady mindset. For calculation-oriented items, estimation first protects against arithmetic traps and helps detect unreasonable answers. Estimation sets a rough expectation for magnitude and direction, such as whether a percentage should be closer to 10 or closer to 90, or whether a result should increase or decrease after a stated change. After that quick sanity anchor, verification becomes a focused check rather than a full recomputation from scratch under stress. This sequence also catches option sets where one answer is wildly inconsistent with the scenario, which is a common design pattern for distractors. Short resets are a practical way to restore focus after a tough item because mental fatigue often accumulates invisibly. A reset can be as simple as a breath cycle, a brief posture change, or a moment of deliberate attention to the next stem, and the value is interrupting the emotional carryover from the previous question. Without a reset, the mind tends to replay the hard item while trying to read the next one, which is how easy points get lost. A steady reset habit keeps each question isolated, so performance reflects knowledge rather than lingering frustration. Flagged item review works best when it is done with fresh eyes and a clear intent, not as a frantic second-guessing loop. Returning later often reveals missed words in the stem or a constraint that was overlooked during the first pass, especially when stress was higher early on. The review mindset should be about confirming alignment between the question's one-sentence restatement and the chosen option, rather than reopening every decision emotionally. When review is structured, it improves accuracy without collapsing confidence. The final minutes should include a check from missed items and submission readiness, because simple omissions can cost points even when knowledge is strong. Under time pressure, it is surprisingly easy to skip an item unintentionally, misclick a response, or leave a question in a half-finished state after flagging it. A calm final scan confirms that every question has an answer selected, and that flagged items have been revisited as time allowed. This closing discipline turns preparation into points by protecting against administrative errors. To conclude, the mental model is straightforward. Stabilize early, earn fast points with a first pass, slow down only where it matters, and protect accuracy through disciplined reading and controlled review. The model also treats time and attention as limited resources, using checkpoints, estimation, and resets to avoid the common collapse that happens late in the exam. One useful rehearsal task is a 5-minute practice run using a handful of sample questions, where the focus is not content but behavior, such as reading stems twice, restating the ask in one sentence, and eliminating distractors by verb and outcome. When that rehearsal becomes familiar, exam day performance becomes less about nerves and more about executing a reliable process. Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.